Recording now.
Okay, so thanks, Neoni, for the mini intro before the intro. So hi, everybody. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank everybody for logging in to our little presentation here. First things first, a couple of housekeeping things. Please make sure that you guys are on mute and that you have your phones on silent just in case maybe you're not on mute and anything goes off, you know. So that way we don't have any of that background noise coming in. Again, thank you for joining us. And today we're going to be presenting on resume writing in the 21st century. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to Leon here.
Hi, everybody. Just about everybody knows who I am. My name is Leoni. I've been with the VA for a little over 5 years now. I'm an Army vet. Before I worked with the VA, I worked with Department of Labor as well as the Employment Development Department for the state of California.
Hi, I'm Bill Baker, and I'm also a veteran of the U.S. Air Force for 8 years. I have 15 years with the Department of Veteran Affairs, and in between, there were 17 years where for half of that I worked with job development and placement for individuals with developmental disabilities. And the other half of that, I was a vocational administrator for a program in Iowa, and we did development and placement and supports for individuals with mental illness. And then I relocated to California, and here I am.
And hello there, everybody. My name's Emilia Gaitan Reed. I am a U.S. Army veteran. I served for 7 years. Was lucky enough to get to go overseas for a little bit and served in Asia and the Western Pacific. Prior to me coming on with the VA, I actually worked with the Employment Development Department for quite some time out in the Central Valley, and I am pretty familiar with what the labor market looks like out here. So it's pretty cool to be on with the VA now and presenting to you all here.
Awesome. So, for today's the task and purpose, our objective for this presentation, we are going to show you guys or discuss the different types of resumes that we are seeing from the veteran population, as well as the case managers that email us their digital copy of their resume. We're also going to show you how to create a master resume and what it's going to look like. And we're also going to use that master resume and change it into a functional or a targeted resume by locating a job at a popular job search website. And we are going to show you how to target your master resume to that job and then run that resume onto an applicant tracking system that gives us information to whether or not the resume has a match to the job they're applying for and at what percentage.
Okay, what is a resume? And I mean, definition is hard when you think about it. When you think about rules of a resume, what comes to mind? Well, it has to be one page. It's got to be 10 to 12 point font, printable margins, great bullets that share results and not responsibility. We can go on, and there's all kinds of rules that go with it. But primarily, the goal of your resume is to get you in the door to talk to the hiring manager. So the only resume rule you should follow is do whatever it takes just to do that. And most resumes, no matter if we're using a functional resume or a chronological resume, a resume is your education, work experience, relative specialized skills, credentials, and accomplishments written in a way that emphasizes your potential. Now, most jobs require an application to submit a resume and oftentimes even a cover letter as part of the application process. And it's interesting that when they ask for a cover letter, I tend to freak out. You know, what am I going to put on the cover letter? I'm just going to give you a brief description. I'm not going to go into detail on cover letters, but a resume is a bulleted overview of your work experience. Now, a cover letter, as the name suggests, shows your skills and your accomplishments in the letter form. Resumes cut to the chase and are a point of reference for the recruiter doing the interview. Cover letters get into more detail and particular career moments and introduces you as the best candidate. It also represents the resume that you're presenting.
Great, thank you, Phil. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. And we're going to go ahead and start going over the different types of resumes. The first one is going to be the chronological resume. So a chronological resume, the big thing with a chronological resume is that you're going to be listing your work history with the most recent position listed first. Below your most recent job, you list your other jobs in reverse chronological order. Typically, employers prefer this type of resume because it's easy to see what jobs you've had and held like within the last couple of years, and it tends to be the most common type of resume that's used. This type of resume also works well for job seekers with a strong, solid work history. So if you've worked in the last 5-10 years and it shows, and you can show that on a chronological resume that there are no gaps in between, this is going to be the best kind of resume that you can use. It works for job seekers with a strong work history, and you're starting your career, so if you are changing fields, you might consider a different resume type. And we're going to go over those here in a little bit. But first, we're going to show you an example of a chronological resume. So here we have a resume for Cindy Evans. And as you'll notice for this resume and all resumes, you want to make sure that you list your name up at the top. Believe it or not, some people will forget to list this. Make sure that this is included. Of course, you're going to have the city of residence. That can actually turn people off to a position depending on if they're open to allowing people to apply that are coming in from farther away. So keep that in mind. And of course, you're also going to want to make sure that you have at least 2 forms of contact listed on your resume because the employer might not be able to reach you by one. So then at least they'll have an alternative. And then as far as listing your positions, so for Cindy, her position that she's holding now is as a marketing representative. And you can see that this is actually the most recent position that she holds, and she's held that position for quite some time and still holds it today. Of course, below that, we're going to want to make sure that we include information that is pertinent to the position that she's applying for. So she might have other skill sets and other information that she could include here, but again, the information that the veteran wants to include is going to be information that pertains to the job that they're applying for. And Cindy is a marketing representative. She's looking for other marketing representative type of jobs. So, and here we can see that marketing manager and with Dragonfly Communications Network. So this would be pertinent to the position that she'd be applying to. All right, and then I'll pass it back over to you, Bill.
Okay, so I'm going to go over a functional resume. And these are resumes that are used for people who are changing careers, who have gaps in their employment history. It's also used for people who are new to the workforce and have limited work experience or who have a break in their employment. Now, when I say that, I mean, we work with a lot of veterans that have gaps in their employment for whatever reason. Sometimes it's because they're in prison and there's a big gap in their employment. And then if you have they want to do a resume, we want to focus on the skills. Or somebody that just has not been able to work for a long period of time and suddenly want to get back in the workforce and engage. Functional resume focuses on your skills and experience, and that's for a reason, because we want the person who is going to be reading your resume to actually see what skills you offer that match what they're looking for. instead of having a work history section at the top of your resume, you might have a professional experience or accomplishment section that lists various skills you've developed over the years. A functional resume also sometimes includes a resume summary or headline at the top, which details a person's skills and achievements, and you don't want it to be something that's quite lengthy. It might not include one's employment history at all, or might have a concise list of work history at the bottom of the resume. And I want to show you an example. Here's an example, and this is an example of Tanya, who looks like she's applying for a reception type position. And what you're going to see up here is she lists a summary, and the summary describes her, and she lists a lot of traits. That's another thing that we don't think about when we're doing a resume. We list our skills, but we don't list our traits. And employers really like to know who you are and how you might fit into their culture. And if you use your traits, that's one benefit. And she describes herself as energetic, engaging, administration specialist. That's good. And she goes on to briefly describe some of the skills and her enthusiasm about becoming a part of the organization. And to me, that's really a good summary. Now, you'll notice we're not going into any chronological here. We're looking at areas of expertise. When we say expertise, it's obvious that Tanya looked up what the job requirements were. And the job requirements probably listed specific skills that the company wants. Almost all job descriptions do that. And she's looked at the ones that she feels she has the strongest for, like reception and customer service. Now, she's listed things that she's done in that area, if that's part of her job. And sometimes people struggle when they haven't done a resume in a while, but they do know what their job skills are. The best way to add what Tanya has done here under, reception and customer service, she's looked it up. She just Googled it and duties that are involved with reception and customer service, and she used what applies to her, and that really strengthens her resume. She goes on down to scheduling a meeting, coordination. Coordination is a key word for somebody that's going to be working in this position, and she goes into some detail on things that she may have looked up that really do apply to her. And then administrative support. She goes into some more of the key skills that somebody's looking for, like organization skills. She's done a good job of identifying skills. Now, if I was an employer and I looked at this, these are critical elements. And when it comes down to whoever's making the decision, they want to know what you can do, not when you did it, and the brief explanation. Work experience, as you see on a functional resume, is very brief, and it just lists like your job title, where you worked, and a summary of how long you were there. And we typically advise using just the years that you were there and not go into great detail about a specific day out of the year. It helps with gaps. It helps with, just covering everything. Shift supervisor shows from 2013 to 2016, no specific dates except for the years, and marketing intern, summer of 2012. Now, if you look at it chronologically, it kind of flows. There may have been a gap between part, like the fall of 2012, until she got the job in 2013. He's not showing that gap, and that's the best thing that you can do with this type of resume. Her education is listed, and it's also kind of important to think about the awards and recognition you might have received. And some of the other things would be technical skills, and this is a key one. Today, we have to list our technical skills, what we can do. Can we operate a multitask with the telephone? Can we do basic stuff on the computer? Or, it lists the things that you can do. Can you do PowerPoint? Can you do Excel? those should be on there because they're going to look for somebody, perhaps in her position, that's going to have to do Excel. So if you're specific about your technical skills, list them. And there's not going to be too many jobs that you apply for that's not applicable. One thing that I wanted to highlight, and it's not really listed on here, is something to think about and to encourage your veterans to think about. Is sometimes we get over creative with our email and what we describe as our email. I mean, and they're kind of loose and free. And I've seen some I can't even repeat. But, you know, like Trailblazer at hotmail.com. Hotmail is kind of a taboo email to use, and employers do not like it. Yahoo is slightly above it, but they'll accept that, but they're always concerned about the amount of scamming that goes on through Hotmail particularly and Yahoo. So if you're going to do anything, make your email professional. I recommend Gmail or anything besides Yahoo. Oh, I have geese flying by my window, excuse me. Anyway, use anything except Hotmail. And if you have to use Yahoo, make it a professional thing. And this may be a time to change your email address. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Awesome. Thank you. So for the next slide, we're going to be talking about the combination resume. A combination resume is basically a mixture of both the functional and the chronological together. There is going to be a big distinction between the functional and the combination, and I will show you guys in the example. At the top of that resume is a list of one's skills and the qualifications, and then below that is the chronological work history. However, the work history is not focused on the resume, but typically does not make up much of the space of the resume. With this type of resume, you can highlight the skills you have that are relevant to the job that you're applying for, as well as provide your chronological work history. And I will show you what that looks like in the example. This kind of resume helps you highlight what makes the best fit for the job, while still giving the employer all the information that he or she wants. So here is one example of the combination resume. From the previous example, the functional, if you notice at the very bottom where it says work experience, with the combination, it combines the work experience at the bottom along with the job description of what this person did or performed at that particular agency. And then at the very top is the relevant job details or duties that the applicant has performed that is relevant to the application or the job they are applying for. So again, the very top is the targeted portion for that job, and then at the very bottom is the equivalent or the relevant experience that can reinforce what's on the top. This is generally what I like to use, is the combination, because not only does it say that I qualify for the job that's stated on the top, but it also reinforces at the bottom of the relevant work experience where I got that experience from. And so, again, this is just an example of a combination resume. And then I'll turn it over to you, Amelia. 1 second.
Thanks, Naomi. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to creating a master resume. And what is a master resume? A master resume is an accumulation of skills and experience that you can pull as needed. This is a document which can be referenced for future resumes. And then we're actually going to go ahead and show you guys here what we mean by building a master resume. And it really is just that, an accumulation of skills. So as you can see here, most resumes are going to be, we recommend that they only be about a page in length. This one is a little bit longer because it's going to include all of your experience that you've ever accumulated, in the years that you've worked. So this one lists employment history. You can see there, it's just kind of like bulleted and just lists a bunch of information regarding the type of experience that this particular person, Mr. Earl Hennell, has as far as things that he could put into any resume. And keep in mind that this doesn't necessarily have to be aesthetically pleasing. It's a resume that you're pulling from so that you can put it into the document that you're actually going to be submitting to the employer. So don't worry too much about what it looks like here, but worry more about the information that's included. So military experience, your education, right? Is that going to help you in the position that you're applying to? If it does, copy and paste from your master resume, and then you can plug it in to the type of resume that you choose to use, whether it be the chronological, functional, or the combination. And again, you want to make that decision based off of where it is that you are personally, as far as, do you have gaps in employment? If you don't have gaps in employment, then maybe the chronological would work best for you, so that way you can show that, hey, my experience is very in the near past. I just did this stuff. It's not something where maybe this experience is from years before. But still, that being said, I do want to make sure that y'all understand that experience is still experience. So it's important to include that information in your master resume so that you can refer back to it later, and then you have it there and you don't really have to show yourself for the information and try to remember. And Bill actually has some really great insights to this. Bill, if you'd like to share with us.
Thank you. I found when working with veterans that have not worked for 20 years, some 30 years, some even more. And when I talked earlier about breaks in employment, somebody that's been in prison for quite some time, or they've been incapacitated or hospitalized or in treatment, the vet will say, I don't know what to put here. I don't have too much work experience, but I remind them you do have skills. And sometimes they struggle to think about what those skills might be. And I always encourage, go all the way back. Go to the way back in your life when you're thinking about what you were taught or learned growing up. And we were all taught or learned something when we were growing up. If you mowed lawns while you were younger, there were skills that were involved in mowing grass, edging, trimming, and knowing the tools that you use. So if you have skills and you can list the tools, just list that. Now, granted, that's not going to be something maybe that you put on a resume that you worked when you were 12 years old doing grass and stuff like that, but you're going to be able to show in the functional resume that you do have these skills. I mean, and then think about other things you did. When I was growing up, every summer we would pick strawberries and we got paid for it. So there were skills involved, and we had to recognize which strawberries we were going to pick. So that would be some of the skills that we would use. We learned how to weigh them, and we also did detasseling every summer. I don't know if anybody grew up in the Midwest and had to detassel corn, and you rode on this giant tractor that went through the fields. You had to know what tassels had to come off, which were the female plants, which were the male plants, and you had to know what to do with that. I mean, you learn so many things your grandfather may have taught you in the garage, to change a tire, to plug a tire that might have gone flat, to change oil, to change transmission fluid, to do a lot of things that you don't think about. But those are very specific skills that you can list. If you're applying for a job at Jiffy Lube and you have those skills but haven't utilized them in some time, you still have those skills. So I encourage everybody, when you're doing a master resume, go all the way back. And this is your private master resume. It's not something that you're going to send to somebody because they're going to go, oh my God, this thing is 10 pages long. And you just want to keep that to yourself, but it's going to be your reminder. And when the time comes and he says, I can't think of what I can apply for, but at least you can identify the skills that you learned from experience growing up, from a relative, from a friend. They all of a sudden become very relevant in your job search.
That's a really great point, Bill. So with the chronological resume, there's really not a whole lot of specific criteria for them. So if you already have an existing resume, and if you want to make one, the best thing to do is just get rid of all of the aesthetic stuff. Like, if there was a line under here, if it was italicized, if you had like special brackets or cells, completely get rid of anything that could that enhances the document, right? So when you copy and paste this information onto a new document, the format that it was copied from, it'll come out as a text when you paste it onto a new document, which is what you want. You don't want any of the extra aesthetic stuff paste within the new one. So again, if you already have an existing resume, if your veterans already have them, I would highly recommend that they should just get rid of all the aesthetic stuff, turn it into what we have here, and then just add onto it. And a master resume, again, it's a living document, so it will continue to keep growing as the person progresses into their career, or if they decide to look for a different job. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to talk about how we go about in using a master resume and targeting that master resume for a particular job. So we're going to do this live. So we have a job lined up for us, and I just want to put out one important note. Because of COVID right now, there has been a lot of job postings online, like Craigslist, Indeed, ZipRecruiter. Once in a while, you run into them, and they're basically scams. And so what they do is they post these jobs that look like they're legitimate, but then when you actually apply for them, it goes to another agency, and then that agency reports it to another one. It's insane what a lot of organizations are doing nowadays. But what I would recommend to locate a position with legitimacy is I would use a platform called LinkedIn or Glassdoor. So for our example, I'm going to be using LinkedIn. We already have a job lined up that we wanted to apply for, and that would be with Netflix as an accountant. And basically, what we do is we take the master resume, right? Underneath, we include a cell just like this one, because again, we're going to be adding onto this master resume. And then on the job posting itself, the important one that we want to pull out is this one right here. And of course, I would always recommend, for our job seekers to always read the entirety of the job posting itself, because there's some things in there that are not in here, but are up here instead. Okay, so to target a master resume to a job. So again, we're just going to go ahead and highlight this. We're going to copy it, and then we're going to paste it into that cell in the master resume, just like how I did here. And for each bullet, what you're going to have to do at this point is translate this first bullet that we pulled from the job description in a way that you, as the applicant, has performed this job description by following these steps right here, which Amelia will share with you.
Thanks, Neone. So yes, altering of the resume into the resume that you're going to use to actually apply, right? So when drafting a targeted resume, we recommend that you use these simple rules. It's the STAR method. Many of you may have heard of this as the STAR method. But basically, the S stands for situation or task, where the ST comes from. A is for action, and R is going to be for your result. And this is the way that you want to include the information in your resume. I know that federal hiring authorities are using this quite a bit now, but basically you lay out the situation or task that you were performing, and then you explain the action that you took, and you complete it with the result, so the outcome. And it might seem like this is a lot of information, but you can actually break this down to be very easy to follow within a resume. And Neoni is going to show you how we did that here.
Okay. So for the very first bullet, perform detailed analysis of prepaid accruals and expenses to ensure proper treatment under USGAAP. So we actually had to look up what GAAP stands for, which is the General Accounting Something Practices, right? So there are going to be some situations where, like, when we do get a resume and we help a veteran, or when you help a veteran and you have no idea what that acronym means, you could always Google it, and then it will make more sense when you create a description that is relevant to you and you perform that particular job. So, like, what we had typed out was this bullet right here. Experience with utilizing GAAP practices when analyzing prepaid accruals and expenses. Previously utilized such experience at Microsoft, overseeing $4.7 million in projected customer prepaid accruals and expenses, resulting in an increase of 3% revenue. So I'm reinforcing this by simply looking at, like, okay, what's in my master resume that I already have? So with this person, looking at their previous experience working with Microsoft, there was already some stuff in here that pertained to that job, but we are rewriting it into a language that an employer is looking for. So basically, that's how you write a target resume. You use the job description that's provided to you, and you're basically rewriting it in a way that pertains to you, but still speak the employer's language, right? So we color-coded it here. So the situation in this case was, this candidate was, had used GAAP practices in the past, and in doing so, how did they do it? Well, they oversaw $4.6 million of a projected revenue, and then the overall end result of that performance was there was an increase of 3% revenue for Microsoft. There are going to be some things that you won't find relevancy to if it doesn't fit for you, right? So you don't really have to, fulfill this particular bullet. So for this example, we just pretty much decided, like, okay, our fake veteran here doesn't have any of this experience, so we're just going to go ahead and skip this part because it doesn't, pertain to us. So what I would recommend if this particular job description doesn't pertain to that, to the performance of what that person has done in the past, do not make it up, because there's going to be some instances where an employer is going to want, okay, do you have documentation to show that, right? So, if you collaborated with a financial application or a finance operations, then you kind of need to show some kind of backing in that. So that's one method to stay away for things, that doesn't apply to you, just completely ignore it. And then one other example that we found is for this bullet. Create an insightful close package that summarizes key business and accounting updates and present them to a group of Netflix managers and directors. So looking at our veterans' work history, this is something that they have done before. They've been able to create a presentation, and they were able to present that presentation to management and directors. As you can see, there is no action, there is no result. Maybe there wasn't anything that that this veteran could measure in order for them to provide. So again, if you can't make it completely to SAR, but at least include some kind of what the situation was and some kind of action in there, if it pertains to you, right? And then the same thing with this last bullet. We didn't find anything that could be relevant to it, so we went ahead and just skipped that. Down here, all of this stuff is actually up here now. So there wasn't a need for us to rewrite what the hiring manager is looking for from down here because we already have it up here. So what we can do then is, now that we're ready to apply for this job, so we rewrote everything, right? That job description. So we went ahead and rewrote it. And all we're going to have to do next is just copy and paste everything over to a new format. And then this will be the new targeted resume. We'll pull the education. Pull the military experience. And then we'll pull employment history. Then, since most of this stuff here is already up here, all we need to do now is just take out the ones that are relevant to it. I'm not going to put all of them on there. And then we'll take these ones. Right? So now you have a targeted resume. Now I'm sure we could add more stuff to this to fit the entire page because, you know, rule of thumb, if you're going to use a page for a resume or a cover letter, just make sure that it's at least completely full. We would never recommend to submit a resume that's half a page. It just makes it look like, you know, you didn't really do a whole lot of, you know, at your previous employment. But again, this is basically how you create a targeted resume. You just use what you already have, create a whole new box for a job that you're applying for, retype it to that pertains to that job, and then you just copy and paste everything over to the other side, just like how we did here. When we perform this type of services with veterans, we find that this is actually one that that is a lot better than them, you know, having them send us a copy of their resume and then we, you know, look over it. We just go ahead and have them run through this process. That way, you know, we can target a job specifically or target a resume specifically to that job, and then therefore we can go ahead and apply for that job once we complete it. And so on the next, in the next slide, we're going to go ahead and use this service here. Let me hand that over to you really quick, Amelia. Okay.
Okay. So next we're going to go ahead and go over the use of applicant tracking systems. A couple of examples that we have are jobscan.co, which is actually the one that we're going to be using today to show you how to take a look at how job tracking systems work. CalJobs is actually the state's website. It's a pretty cool website. It's just got a lot of information in it. But if you have veterans who are already in CalJobs, they can actually use the system to rate their resume, and it actually gives them back a percentage, letting them know how close does the resume match to the position that they're wanting to apply to. And we're going to show you guys that here in a sec. So JobScan site can assist you to get past resume robots, or at least that's what they say on their website. Over 90% of large companies use applicant tracking systems. These systems analyze resumes and curriculum vitae to surface candidates that best match the position, but qualified applicants slip through the cracks. We have researched the top systems and built our resume checker based on their common pattern. To do that, Oh.
Okay, I'll switch it over really quick. Sorry. And then, so this is the target resume that we made here. And then on the next tab will be the description. Go ahead. Amelia, did you get disconnected? Okay, so it looks like she got disconnected, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue. So to use this service is basically what we're doing is for this step here, we're going to grab our description, paste it in here. Same thing with this one. Now notice that I'm not taking the employer information and the dates. We don't really need that because it's not something that they're going to be measuring in this scan. What they're going to measure is or scan for are relevancy to the job posting. So we did that. We'll go ahead and pull this here. We're going to paste that over to the side here. And the same thing with this one here. Right. There you go. So as you can see, I mean, our number, again, you know, we only had half a page and we didn't really have a whole lot to, or we didn't really have a whole lot of data for this website to scan. But as you can see, the relevancy for this job for Netflix is below 20%, but it also shows you a breakdown of what you need to fix. So like, for example, the hard skills of what this job is looking for is somewhere along the lines of the design, use of SOX systems, and then system design. So if it's not included in there, they're going to highlight it that it's missing, right? So again, an applicant tracking system's job is to scan a document. And like Amelia is saying, that 90% of employers do use them. And it's really a way to vet an individual or an applicant and whether or not they qualify for a position. This is also another way to not say trick some of applicant tracking systems that agencies use, but now that you know that this is how it works, you can use it in your favor. Right. So again, targeting the resume is extremely important, especially when an employer uses an applicant tracking system. And if there's not a match in your resume, I would just go ahead and change or add into the functional resume and include what is missing in that resume. Okay. So generally, something like this, it would generally take about an hour. But when you have a master resume already made, and if you've been adding jobs to it, you know, as you progress in your career, what can turn something to an hour, and this, you know, with all of the information that you already have, it could take less than maybe 30 minutes if you just follow the SAR format. And also, you know, just copy and pasting the stuff over.
Okay, thank you for taking over for me there, Neoni. I got kicked off for a sec. But in review, we just want to make sure that you guys understand some of the points that we were trying to get across. And of course, those points were know and understand the different types of resumes. We went over 3 different types today and actually threw in another one with the master resume. Create a master chronological resume, which we just went over. Thank you, Neoni, for showing us how to do that. It was pretty cool. And again, very much encourage you guys to let your veterans know that this is a tool that they should be building if they're looking for work. It's honestly something that we should all do because you never know, what's going to happen. Maybe an opportunity comes up and you already have this set up for yourself, right? It's an amazing tool. How to use a master resume to create resumes, right? Your functional targeted resumes or chronological resumes. How to locate a job on a job search website. We provided you guys with a couple of different websites and made recommendation as to which websites are likely to work a little bit better. And then, of course, just to be aware of scams. They are out there basically fishing for personal information, trying to get people's social security numbers, things like that. So do be aware of that. Targeting your resume to the job, so actually including information that's going to help you get the job, right? Not just filling your document up with information that, hey, I've done this, so I'm going to include it on there. Targeting the resume, so important. So be sure that you guys are encouraging your vets to do that. And of course, understanding of the use of applicant tracking systems and just how having certain words pop up within your resume can actually help you, right? And work to your advantage in getting chosen, hopefully, to get interviewed. Because really, the whole purpose of the resume is to get you in to that interview so that you can speak for yourself and actually, make a good impression on the people who are interviewing you. So, now go ahead and hand it off to Bill, I think.
I just want to thank everybody that's been a part of this, and Neoni can be reached at the following email address and his work cell phone number. I can be reached at my email address and cell phone number, but only until October 30th because I will be retiring and I will be moving to Iowa. And I just found out today I've been offered a part-time job with Job Corps, working with 18 to 24-year-olds doing vocational development. And it's part of the Department of Labor. I haven't accepted. I've just been offered it, and it would start in next March. But anyway, I've learned so much in the VA, and it's tough to leave now with all of this stuff going on. I wish we could have done virtual presentations before, because I felt like this really went smooth, and I feel like I'm on the edge of doing something completely new and something that I've never done before. So this has been exciting, and I thank everybody. And Amelia, welcome aboard. It's great to have you, and you and Neoni, I think, will continue to carry the torches. And Amelia can be reached at her email address and her work number with the extension until she's blessed with one of our cell phones. I could give you mine as I'm leaving. Thank you very much.
So I would like to leave this opportunity for questions. If anybody has any questions, you could type it in the chat box, or you can go ahead and just unmute your mic and then ask us a question if you have any. All right. I don't see any questions being typed in the chat box, or nobody is unmuting. Again, if you guys have any follow-up questions or just feedback, feel free to shoot us an email or shoot us a text message, and we'll do our best to respond to your request. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to setting up another presentation and inviting you guys again. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, thank you for participating. Yeah, it's just us.
Okay, that was just us. Okay.
Billy, you did so
you
awesome.
What's that?
You did amazing. I'm so glad you participated with us. That you helped us out.
I'm so glad I did too. I mean,